podcast. My name is William.
And this is Davis.
And today out in the Galaxie Studios, we have my Uncle Jon.
Hi, I'm Jon Bryant.
Let's talk racing.
I'm ready.
When did you get the bug?
When I was a very little kid, sports cars were a brand new thing in the United States. Post World War II, there were MGTCs and Jaguar XK120s, and then the Austin Healey's came along. And I lived on a boulevard, right off a boulevard, where cars were up and down all day long, and I watched them all, and I fell in love. And first, of course, I fell in love with hot rods. A Deuce Roadster was my very first love. And it didn't take me long to realize that an XK120 or an Austin Healey was where I really wanted to go. And it didn't take me long to discover road racing after that. And Riverside Raceway was built shortly into my teenage years. And that became...
About what year would this be?
56, 57. In fact, I think the very first Times Grand Prix, which was put on by the LA Times in October, the last weekend of October every year for several years, I think was in 1957. Almost positive it was. And a bunch of pros from Europe came over, and of course, all the best pros in the United States were there in their car. All the wealthy sportsmen from all over the country with their ex-factory cars, and it was a big deal. The Times Grand Prix was. That's where I saw my first race. And in fact, one of my standard jokes is the very first race car I ever heard in full song was a 250 Ferrari Testarossa, a 3-liter V12, and it ruined my life. I have never, ever gotten over the sound of that wonderful V12 Ferrari. It still haunts me to this day. So, sorry to interrupt you, but back to the teenage thing. Well, that's how I fell in love with it.
Okay.
And of course, as you go to the Times Grand Prix, you see nothing but the very fanciest factory cars from Europe. Got to see Sterling Moss drive Aston Martin cars that he'd raced at Le Mans, and Phil Hill, of course, in the Ferraris, and all kinds of guys in Maseratis and Jaguars. I mean, it was wonderful. But I started going to production car races, amateur races too, and they had them at the fairgrounds in Pomona and in Santa Barbara on the Goleta Airport. And we'd go to SCCA, Cal Club races, and nothing but amateurs racing their production sports cars. And, of course, it didn't take me long to identify what class I wanted to race in myself and what particular car I wanted to race. And so I grew up lusting after that. In fact, and most of the time I was, through my teen years, if you wanted to carry on a conversation with me, I would start off talking about some other subject, but pretty soon I would have warped the conversation over to road racing somehow or other.
Wow. So did you have your own car, or did you just start by being a driver?
There's only one driver I've ever heard of in the history of the sport that never owned a race car of his own, and that's Jackie Stewart. Everybody else, yeah. He was so talented. He was a champion trap and skeet shooter, and an Olympian, yeah, and mousetrap reflexes. And he was one of the only guy I've ever heard of that never had to own his own race car. Everybody else starts off by coming to the racetrack with their own car. And for me, it was an Alfa Romeo Giulietta Spider, a 1300cc, wonderful little car.
Was it red?
No, it was powder blue.
Okay, then I don't remember that one.
It was your standard. It was a 1961 1300cc double overhead cam, all aluminum engine, transmission, and third member. I mean, a beautiful car, Pininfarina body, and in that particular class, it was G Production. They ruled the class. You go out and watch production car races at Riverside, and H Production was all Austin Healey sprites, Bug Eye sprites, with maybe a couple of Fiat 850s thrown in, and. H Production, then G Production was almost all 1300cc Alfa Juliet. As anybody else that tried to hang in that class didn't stand a chance, because that was the fastest car around. F Production was small displacement Triumphs and MGs. E Production was Porsche Speedsters, the Carreras. C Production, the larger displacement stuff. B Production was small V8s like the GT350 Ford Mustang was the king of that class. There were, and when the 911s first came out, they were involved in that class. And A production, of course, was all the big block stuff, the big block Corvettes, and then finally the Cobras. And those comprised all the production classes. And, of course, they had modified classes, too, for each displacement class, but they were only race cars, from the ground up race cars. And formula cars were unheard of in the United States when I was growing up. I got to see the very first Formula Junior race ever held in the United States, and it was at Riverside Raceway. And they were all still front engine at that point in time. But formula cars, open wheel single seaters,
Right.
were an entirely new thing to amateur sports car racing in the United States. And of course, they're a big deal now, all kinds of formula cars. And that, for anybody that enjoys driving race cars, that is the final word, is the formula car. It's the scalpel of race cars. Here's another interesting factor about the different styles of cars. You take a production sports car, like that Alfa Giulietta, and drive it around on the street, not doing any modifications to it, and you throw it into a turn a little bit too fast, and it starts telling you very early on into the turn that you better take corrective action, or I'm going to do something unkind. So there's a broad buffer of recoverability if you make a mistake. If you modify that car, lower it all the way around, stiffen the suspension, had anti-sway bars, wider wheels and tires, all the type of the pressures and all that sort of stuff, you can go a lot faster through that same turn. But the window, what you pay for in the engineering trade-off, there's always a trade-off. Whatever you do in an engineering context, what you gain on one hand, you lose something on the other hand. What you lose is recoverability, that window of warning telling you that you've overcooked it, or you're going to slide off the track, or spin out or something, gets narrower. And the next click up from that is an all-out purpose-built race car, two-seater. It has an extremely narrow band of warning, but you can go through turns so much faster than even the very best prepared production car that there's no comparison. And there's one click above that, and that's a formula car, which means it's very easy to drive fast in a formula car. Anybody can get in a formula car and cook laps. This is easy. The difference is the last 9/10 to 10/10 driving. To drive really fast in one, there is no warning. It's like surfing on a little tiny surfboard. On a big surfboard, if you make a mistake, you get some correction time before you fall off. On a little tiny twin fin or a surfboard, if you make a mistake, boom, you're wet. And it's the same way with a formula car. It's to really go fast, you've got to be on your money. And of course, the major hazard with formula cars is the open wheels. You get as long as you got full bodywork and fenders, it's much safer because with a formula car you can get wheels inside of each other, and when that happens, generally speaking, somebody goes airborne. And there are a lot of race car drivers that won't have anything to do with formula cars. They're strictly full fenders only.
Wow.
I beat that subject pretty hard. Let's see.
So have you driven any formula cars?
Formula Fords.
Formula Fords?
Yeah, Formula Fords are a production engine. They use an English Ford 1600cc pushrod engine, a spec racer engine. You can only the rules are real strict, which makes it good for the average guy. It's a full-on race car otherwise. I mean, you can do absolutely anything you want otherwise, but the engine is spec. So you can, there are a couple of builders of the engines, J. Ivy in Portland, and there's a guy named Loynes back east who's big back there. But you can get a brand new spec racer engine from AIV for about $7,000, and it's about a $3,000 to $5,000 overhaul. And the best part is you can drive it for a couple of years, race it like crazy for a couple of years without touching it. Change the spark plugs maybe once. But it's got a stock compression ratio, stock camshaft, modified carburetor, but the same carburetor. So you only get about 115 horsepower, but it's a 1,000-pound car.
So you're moving.
They'll do 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, and with the same gearing, you can do 140 miles an hour.
That'll get you around.
Yeah.
It's fast. Yeah, but again, as fast as they are in the acceleration figures for a silly little 115 horsepower, how fast they'll go around turns is really mind-bending. Here, in fact, as an illustration, my last race at Willow Springs Raceway, I finished 6th in my class. And my average speed for the 25 minutes was 99 point something miles an hour for the entire race, just under. If I had gone 50 feet deeper in one turn or another during the course of the race, I would have broken a 100-mile average for the race. That would have won the A production race going away. All the 427 Cobras, all the 427 Corvettes, so forth, would have been in distant arrears of me in terms of for the same average speed. So for that silly little 115 horsepower, that illustrates how fast they go around turns.
Right. Wow.
How much faster is a 427 Cobra in a drag race than a Formula Ford? A full second faster to 0 to 60. Easy.
But it can't do the turns.
But it just is a pig. And it's a great sports car by all international standards. Cobras, they're a great sports car.
Right.
But compared to a Formula car, a whole different world.
So you mentioned Willow Springs. When was that?
Let's see, that was 3 years ago. My last drive at Willow Springs. But
And you own that car?
yeah, I did.
Oh, you did.
I did.
Tell me what next question was going.
Yeah, formerly owned it.
I was going to say, is it in your garage right now?
Would you believe I got 24 race weekends in that car, and over a period of over 2 years. And a race weekend, it goes like this: you show up Thursday afternoon, you show up at the track, and you unload everything. You get camp set up. If you're lucky enough to have garage space rented, you set up your garage, cover the car up, and take off for the motel and have a nice dinner. Show up the next morning, and Friday is all day long practice. You'll get probably 4 20-minute practice sessions, maybe more. And then Saturday morning, and then that's time to strictly unofficial, just open practice. Saturday morning you have an open practice session and a qualifying practice session, and then a qualifying race based on your qualifying time. How you finish the race on Saturday determines your starting position on the grid for Sunday's trophy dash. That's the standard setup. You get a cleanup practice on Sunday morning, so-called because it's not unusual to have something go wrong on Saturday and work all night long Saturday trying to fix it. And before your race, it'd be good if I can get out on the track to make sure I got it fixed.
Right.
And then the trophy dash sometime midday Sunday. And if you're lucky, you're one of the classes that gets run off earlier in the Sunday afternoon, because in an amateur race weekend, as soon as the race is over for each one of these, there'll be 5, 8 races in the course of a day. As soon as every race is done, people start putting their cars in their trailers and throwing toolboxes and station wagons, and
they got to work on Monday.
The real race is on. they're headed back to work on Monday. Yes, then the real race starts. So and that's the classical amateur race weekend. Oh, I left out Friday night. There's usually the race organizer throws a wine and cheese and hors d'oeuvres bash, and usually there's one on. And on Saturday night they frequently have a dinner too, but that's part of your entry fee. You'll get 2 tickets along with your entry fee, and those are always lots of fun.
How much does a race like that cost for an amateur?
It depends on the track. At an amateur organization like I deal with, somebody has to put up the money to rent the track. And the organization comes up with it's a big chunk of money. So they amortize the cost over however many people they can get. And it winds up being, to answer your question briefly, is somewhere between $350 to $500 for the race weekend. And if you get one in on the Friday practice, it's usually another $150 on top of that. So there's a real relevant question. What's it cost for a race weekend? The very first race I ever drove was at Santa Barbara in 1966 at the airport course in that same Giulietta, by the way, which I modified. I hated to take that off the street. Driving that back and forth to work and on the weekends was a lot of fun, and when I changed it into a race car, I couldn't do that anymore. But at that point in time in 1966, everybody talked about a race weekend, and a race entry at that point was $25 for the entry fee.
Wow.
And a race weekend was $100 weekend. And everybody, $100 weekend. Wow. Well, now it's $500 for a weekend. And if you're racing like a Formula car and you got a set of slicks, which are only good for about 12 go-outs before they go off, heat cycles, and then they get greasy feeling, and you start losing 2 or 3 seconds per lap. So they're $550 for the set. And gas is $6 to $7 a gallon at the track for the high octane
racing
fuel. And of course, you change your oil after every race, and you're using Mobil 1. What's that cost? $50 for an oil change. And so it's well over $2,000 a race weekend. By the time you travel, eat out, gin and tonics, it's at least a $2,000 weekend. If you're lucky, if nothing goes wrong.
Yeah, right, you don't break anything.
Yeah, if you don't break anything.
Oh, wow.
So
And that's just for the fun of it.
Strictly for the fun of it.
There's no big reward payout. at the
there
end.
was-
What do you get if you win your class?
Well, that's interesting you should say that, because right after I got started, an entrepreneur, I raced with HSR West, Historic Sports Racing Dash West, mostly. Once in a while, VERA, Vintage Auto Racing Association, which are the two hardcore vintage racing associations in the West Coast. There's HMSA in San Diego and CSRG in Northern California, but they're a lot more strict about their rules. If you touch another car, put your car on the trailer, and you can't come back for 13 months.
Wow.
So they still race hard, but they do not allow any really ding-dong hardcore racing. I've driven by guys, seen the bottom end of a Formula Ford up in the air as I went by. That sort of stuff. HSR West and VERA are much more hardcore. What was it?
The payout, the reward at the end.
Oh yeah, so an entrepreneur who had owned a couple of Formula Fords, and he had two pro drivers, driving them, who were very good. Started he called it a semi-pro series, and I started amassing points and started awarding small cash prizes and donations from suppliers, tires, overhauls, that sort of stuff. So all of a sudden we went from 14, 16, 18 car fields and a first place trophy only set of circumstances to where they were giving first through fourth or fifth trophies and cash prizes too. And immediately we started getting 22, 24, 28 car fields and ex-pros. We got a couple of ex-IndyCar drivers and that sort of stuff. I started coming into it. Guys that could no longer qualify for a ride as a pro, still wanted to race. And Formula Ford is about as cheap a real race car as you can get anywhere on the planet.
A cheap Formula Ford.
I
didn't think Ford could be any cheaper than a Chevy.
Well, the Formula Ford, you can get into a Formula Ford for around $20,000 for a good one. And of course, anytime you buy a used race car, you better go through it and have the suspension component, the front hubs crack checked and that sort of safety stuff. Rekit the brakes, and brakes are important.
Yes.
The usual safety stuff. Make sure that it's good, because you're going to go through tech inspection too. That's the other big stumbling block is when you show up at the racetrack, you got to get tech inspected, and that's where having a good pro shop on your side makes a big difference. If they know what's going on, you might pay a little bit more than doing it more than a little bit more than doing it by yourself. But the tech inspector knows the shop. Chances are you're not going to have any trouble getting onto the track. If you just show up just starting out, they're going to jam you through some knot holes to make sure that you're towing their line. What was the other point? Okay. Excuse me. Go ahead.
So, your first car was that powder blue
Alpha Giulietta. Yeah.
What happened to that?
After I raced it, I managed to get on track 2 or 3 times with that, and would you believe I managed to talk. My home away from home at that point in time was Jim Gray Imports, an Alpha dealer in North Long Beach, Bixby Knolls. And there was a character that hung out there also, for the same reason, that had just started racing a Triumph Spitfire. And they had Cal Club was running a 6-hour enduro at Riverside, and I talked the guy into entering the 6-hour enduro and letting me co-drive with him, because you had to have 2 drivers for the enduro. Well, the car was a brand new car, and he'd only driven it a couple of times. And I was 21 years old myself, and to make a long story short, I took the car out on the very first lap from a standing start. I lapped it faster than the other guy had ever lapped at Riverside with it. But I told him before I got in the car, I said, "There's not enough negative camber on this rear end. It's swing axles on the original Spitfires." which means you get camber chains on the outside of the wheels. And I said, I looked at Ed Barker's Spitfire. I pointed to that over there. It looks like an elephant stepped on it. He had so much. He was the national champion in the Jeep production. It had so much negative camber on the rear end and the front end. Well, I came up to turn 7, which was a slightly downhill left sweeper, and it's a third gear turn. Riverside was all third and fourth gear, fast track. In fact, the slowest spot on the track is about 65 miles an hour in a Spitfire. And I came up and pitched the car sideways like I always had the Alpha to four-wheel drifted around the turn, and it tucked a rear axle, and over I went. Did a full 360-degree loop. Rolled it. And on the second lap, I drove. The first lap, I took it fairly easy, and then the second lap, I came into that turn and
a little more confidence,
and straight on over. Let me tell you, next time you're driving down the freeway at 65 miles an hour, think what kind of G-forces it might build up if you were all of a sudden sideways and did a full 360 degrees and came back up on your wheels again. The G-forces at even paltry 65 miles an hour is enormous. And on top of that, as I had just bought my first house, 2 weeks later we were supposed to move. And
oh boy,
yeah. So I decided at that point in time, buying this new house, it's all I can do to get into this. It cost everything I could scrape together because I did my racing as a 21-year-old entirely on my own, had no help from anybody, and anyway, and at that point in time, and here I've got a brand new baby, and a brand new house, and I thought, time to sell the Alpha. And I sold it to a guy who lived in Northern California, and he wound up crashing it. Last I heard. I sure wish I'd kept that car.
So,
here's another. I paid $1,100 for that car.
oh,
In 1965. It was 4 years old. I forget how many miles was on it, but it was perfect. And I sold it for $1,400. Had a roll bar on it, and I prodified the engine and lowered it all the way around, wide wheels and tires. It was a thing of beauty. It looked like a little Cobra. A little monster packed with muscle, and it's worth about $35K today, easy, probably way under.
okay. So you stopped.
So I stopped.
House and cousin Kimmy, and then
That only lasted about a year. I couldn't take it, and I started riding dirt bikes, which was ever so much cheaper, and I got a lot more racing in. The scar on the end of the nose, I ran through the pennants at Saddleback Raceway. That was back before full head coverage helmets. And got crossed up in an opposite locks power slide, hit a hard patch, and it shot me right through the pennants off the course and chopped the end of my nose off. Took a bunch of stitches to attach this back on.
Wow.
So how long were you doing that?
I raced motorcycles for 5 years. And had a lot of fun. Like I said, one of the things you learn, this little amount of time I managed to spend in the sports car game as a kid, it was all I could do to stay out of everybody's way and make sure I didn't do anything stupid. And unfortunately, except for rolling the Spitfire, I never had anything ever go wrong in the handful of times I managed to get on a track. And I'm grateful I managed to drive Riverside because everybody still to this day still talks glowingly about Riverside. But the ability to race 3 times on a Sunday, you learn a lot about tactics. Like, one of the first things you learn is if you're following somebody, that every time you come to a turn, he accelerates just as fast as you do. He's got just as much horsepower as you do, but you come up to the next turn and he slows down more than you do. So you have to brake harder than you would if he wasn't in your way. So it doesn't take you long to realize, hey, lap speed wise, I'm faster than this guy. If he wasn't in my way, I'd be much further down the track. And as long as you stay right there on his wheel, you'll never get by him. You have to let him build just before you get to the next turn that you know that you can accelerate through or go through faster than he can, and let a little space fall between you two of you so that he doesn't balk you. And as he slows down, then you can pick your line and accelerate past him. All it takes, as you're executing that next turn, if you come out of that turn 1 mile an hour faster than he is, you average a mile an hour faster down the length of the next straightaway. And that's the most basic pass technique. It's all it takes is a little differential exiting a turn, and the longer the next straightaway is, the more likely you'll get past him before the next turn.
So, what year did we keep talking about Riverside? What year did that close?
Man, I can't tell you that. It was
Wasn't it like in the
late 70s?
Yeah, 75, something like
Like
that.
that.
And that was located where?
Right off the Riverside Freeway. I wish I could remember the name of the off-ramp, because whenever I drive by it today, I look over affectionately in the direction where it was, and there's concrete tilt-ups and small shopping malls and a few residences. And there was nothing around there.
Yeah, I vaguely remember it as a kid, and I asked my dad, "Hey, what's that over there?" He said, "Oh, it's a racetrack." And I go, well, "Let's go over there." And he said, "Well, it's closed."
It was a wonderful track. It was a fast track. I mean, in an Alpha, you'd go start-finish straightaway, a fast left bend on turn one, which was flat out in fourth gear, and all the way up the S's, several S's flat out all the way up there in a 1300 Julietta. Bang down to third shift, down to third to go up into turn 6, which had a big wall around it and grandstands behind that. And it was a decreasing radius turn, which decreasing radiuses are the nemesis of all drivers. As you're having a hard time keeping the thing straight anyway, because you're going faster than you really should right now, and all of a sudden the turn tightens up too. So that was the real hair puller on the track. Then down the short straightaway to turn 7, a hard left, a hard right, down a 3,000-foot straightaway to turn 9, which was a whale of a lot of fun, because it was a giant constant radius turn. You could come up to it in Julietta doing about 115, maybe 120 max. And as you roll into the turn, this is how you set up a four-wheel drift. Back in the old days, that was the fast. In the old tire technology days, tires have changed more than absolutely anything else in race cars. Engine horsepower is never been a problem. Tire technology and brakes but first tire technology. In the old days, the old hard tires, you'd come up to a turn like that, and as you're rolling into the turn with your steering wheel, you lift and stab several times on the accelerator pedal. And that is, with a high compression engine, it's like touching your brakes. And as you lift, stab, lift, stab, lift, stab, lift, stab, each time you do that, it cocks as you're rolling into the turn. It causes your rear end to bump out just a little bit. So you break adhesion in your rear wheels just a little bit. And as you get as it finally, and this all happens bang, 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 when you hit the right angle to where this is the drift angle I want, you nail it, put the foot back down on the floor again, and it holds that angle all the way around the turn, so all four wheels are sliding. And as you exit the turn, you're lined up right to go down the next straightaway. And that was a long sweeper at 115 miles an hour, all four wheels sliding. And that was more fun than any other spot on the course. It was a ball.
Do you drive with 2 feet?
The 2 feet?
1 foot on the brake and 1 foot on the accelerator.
Well, that's something that has changed here in the recent past. And when I was a youngster driving, nobody ever did left foot braking. It was right foot and heel and toe. If you come up to a turn and you were braking and you wanted to blip for a downshift, you'd toe the brake pedal and blip your throttle with your heel. And or vice versa, depending on how your geometry was. But that was the way it was always done. And when the go-kart thing became a big part of all driver training, of course, left foot braking is part and parcel of driving go-karts. People started left foot braking, and it changed driving styles considerably. Sure. And about the same time that all started happening is the tire technology started advancing too. And slicks became a factor. When I was a youngster, there was no such thing as a slick race tire. They were all treaded, and they were all harder too. You could get a full season out of a set of race tires on a production car. There's no way in the world you can get 2 race weekends out of a set of slicks today. So with left foot braking and slicks, lap times dropped precipitously, and the old classical way of driving, when you're learning how to drive today, the driver instructor will tell you, hammer it down the straightaway. I mean, go to red line on every gear, and when you come up to the first turn at the end of the straightaway, brake, pick your line, and then accelerate all the way through the turn, because a race car will not hook up unless you're accelerating. If you try and coast around the turn, it will not grab. So the idea is to have your race car under power, so it forces it to take a squat. And if you've got slicks on the car, it will hook up, and it'll twitch around a little bit, depending on how close you are to the limits of adhesion. But basically, it hooks up, and of course, the first lap you do that, you realize very rapidly that, hey, I could have gone a lot deeper before taking my foot off the accelerator pedal and started braking. And so the next lap up, you hammer it down the straightaway the same way, using the same red lines and shift points. And you go fast where you did on the first lap, and brake and accelerate the change. Hey, I could. And the next lap run, I could have gone even deeper still. And that's how you learn a course, is by forcing. But the point is, the bottom line is for the newcomer, is you don't brake while you're turning. Do all your braking first, and then accelerate through the turn. As you get better, you learn that you can brake while you're turning too. Now that brings up a technical issue, because a tire can give you 100% of its adhesion as accelerating, or it can give you 100% of its adhesion decelerating, as long as you're in a straight line. If you try and turn two, that changes the coefficient of friction. So you can't brake as hard if you're turning your wheels, because you're dividing some of your deceleration adhesion with your turning adhesion. So you have to have less brake pressure. And learning how to trail brake and turn at the same time entering a turn, ideally, and this is what go-karts teach, is you don't start braking until the very last second, and you brake all the way to the point to the apex of the turn, and right as you clip the apex, then you shift back to acceleration. And when you're first learning to drive, that's a little bit difficult.
Go-karts.
That's the way to start.
Like the common, like the 12-inch tire guys out there on the weekend. Mm-hmm. Some of them have clutches, some of them don't. That's what you're talking about?
Either way, either the shifter carts or non-shifter carts, either way.
Okay, gotcha.
It's the same technique in terms of cornering.
Oh, so that would be the...
That's all race car drivers of any quality in the world today started out go-karting. When I was a kid, go-karting had just gotten started, and I don't think anybody really realized what a great training ground it was at that point in time. But it's I don't care what kind of a level of pro driver it is on this day, still spends some time sharpening up in go-karts when he's not. If he's not busy talking to his lawyers or his press agent or his tire sponsor or getting fitted for his new Formula One car back at the factory in Italy, he's in a go-kart.
Interesting.
Practicing.
That's right, because...
sharpening constantly.
I've never gone to a go-kart race, but my former mechanic was really into that, and he would go out every weekend and go go-karting.
Yeah, you might try one of the go-kart schools. A bunch of us went up and to the Jim Hall go-kart school in Ventura, and we rented the track for Sunday. Get a bunch of us together, and we had a wonderful time. Drove until our arms were ready to drop. We got a lot of time in. It was a real good experience. Highly recommend it.
Well, we should look into that, man.
Oh yeah, for $300 or $400, something like that. I mean, if you ought to do it, Save, if it takes you a little while to do it, set yourself up a stash and go to a go-kart school. You won't regret it.
Wow. Yeah, because I don't think we can afford that, NASCAR weekend kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Even
Richard Petty school
even
driving.
if you never, ever buy a kart and start racing yourself, go to a go-kart school. You will be glad you did. All you got to do is show up. They give you a helmet and,
right.
and all the rest of the stuff. Here's the car. They show you how they fit it for you.
And the car that you can pick up and move around.
And point you in the right direction. And,
Right.
and you got all day long to drive the wheels off it. You'll be real glad you did.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to look into that.
I think that's more speed, yeah.
Well, if I had it all to do over again, I would have picked up a go-kart for the first couple of years myself, because I wasted the first 6 months I was driving the Formula Ford. First off, of course, you don't want to make any stupid mistakes, because everybody's watching, the newcomer, and you better deport yourself carefully. As everybody thinks they, lean on this side of the fence, thinks that they can be a great race driver. That's standard red-blooded male. And nobody has any idea how fast they really are going on the other side of the fence. It's deceptive. The first time I got into a sports car race as a 21-year-old, I could not believe how much faster they were going. And I had spent a long time watching sports car races. And I could not believe how much faster they were going than it looked to me. And it's same when I made the shift to motorcycle racing. It took me a while to make the adjustment. And when I started the Formula Fords, I understood the syndrome. Having been there before, I knew exactly what to expect. I knew that they were going to be going a lot faster than I could ever believe. And I spent the first 6 months shifting at a very conservative red line. Why should I wear this engine out? Because I'm learning my dues, and plus I don't want to make any mistakes and have them blackball me, because they'll tell you, they'll squeeze you out if you do anything stupid. But after that 6 months, I started using the red line that the engine builder said it was good for it, and started passing people. And as luck would have it, about half. Maybe a 25% to a third of the guys that are driving Formula Fords locally are ex-pros, guys that have made their living driving race cars, been all over the world. And then there's another 25% are guys that have been raced production sports cars for years and been to the nationals and that's done very well racing production sports cars. And they watched Formula cars and being rabid race car nuts, they eventually got into Formula cars. That's the ultimate. And then there's the other third, the characters that are Johnny-come-latelys like myself that generally speaking, are the back markers. Well, I started passing guys that were ex-production car champs about 6 months into it, and it wasn't very long that I was at the front of the second gaggle, and before long I was at the back of the leader's gaggle. So, and the only trouble with being at the back of the leader's gaggle is you can stay with them through a couple of the turns, and then there's a turn that they are much faster than you. Well, you never get that back.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Whatever they pull out on you, that's it. You never see them again. So it's if you can get a set of circumstances where you can follow somebody that's really good and manage to stick with them, it pays big learning dividends. You learn a lot from the old pros. And again, it's absolutely stupefying how crazy they appear to be the first few times you get on the track. I mean, it's so much faster than you ever thought possible. How they get away with it. But like I said, and after you make that shift consciousness-wise, there you are doing it yourself, and it's a lot of fun.
That first day has just got to be nerve-wracking.
Well, it is on the one hand because, it's how in the world am I ever going to get as like these guys? But on the other hand, it's so much fun trying. I remember one of my early drives at Willow Springs. Here you are lined up on the pace lap behind a pace car, and you're lined up in 2 by 2 by 2 by 2, several rows of guys side by side. You come around the last turn, and you're running along. Everybody's running along in first gear at 5,000 RPM. And again, in a race car, a real race car, all the gears come out after every race, and first through fourth get changed for every race course. You gear the car for the top speed on the fourth gear, whatever the top speed is. You want to run out of R's at the end of the longest straightaway, right? Mm-hmm. And your first gear you pick is the slowest spot. What's the slowest turn on the course? And so you pick a gear that suits that exactly right. So you don't fall below your power band in first gear on the slowest part of the course. So, and the second and third get chosen to space out in between there about right. And that's basically how you change gears. And every track, if you don't have the right gear setup for every track, you're going to have cars going by on both sides. So here you are. It's a very tall first gear. That's what the point that I'm trying to say. Here you are rolling along in first gear at 5,000 RPM. You come around the last turn. The pace car sweeps off into the hot pit lane, and we're all watching the start-finish line. There's the little tower with the character with the green flag behind his back, watching you like a hawk, and he won't even show you the green flag until he's sure that you're all doing the right thing. And all of a sudden, the green flag comes out, and the hammer goes down. Well, here I'm coming around turn 9 one time. And I've got a full head coverage helmet on, all the Nomex on, $2,000 worth of fire suit and helmet on. and I'm looking up the deal, and I start laughing. Literally, here I am. Nobody can hear me, of course, but I am literally so delighted to be where I am at that point in time. I start laughing. And it's about the time I start getting my second or third hoo-ha out comes the green flag. The laughing stops because it's to work. Because driving a race car with a bunch of crazy guys like that is work. Don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise. In fact, I had an old pro, Jim Sparks, the guy that's driven Sebring, driven Lions, all kinds of pro races, ex-Porsche racer, told me one time after watching my race at Phoenix, he said, "Man, you were working hard." And I laughed and I said, "Doesn't everybody work hard when he's driving a race car?" And he said, "You were working hard." And to this day, I still want to know what in the world he really meant by that. But yeah, you're sweating. You get out of the race car, you're
Well, yeah. I mean,
you're sweating. And you know, after 20, 25 minutes, this is more evidence of being an amateur. But after 20, 25 minutes, sometimes it went a little bit longer than that. I was glad when the race was over. That was enough for one shot. And you do that 2 or 3 times on a day.
You're tired.
You're tired. And how anybody can drive a 500-mile race, or even think about something like an enduro race like Sebring that have 12 hours, the 24 hours of Le Mans, that's a superhuman stunt. I can't imagine how it's possible.
Have you ever been to see Le Mans?
No, but that, of course, is the greatest race of all, the greatest sports car race.
Right.
Yeah, the greatest Formula car race, of course, is Monaco. Contrary to what you will hear every Memorial Day weekend coming from Indianapolis. Although Indy's a big deal, there's no question about it. All race car fans love Indianapolis, but it's not the greatest race on the planet, as far as I'm concerned.
What do you think about the local Long Beach Grand Prix?
Well, of course, street courses are... I prefer real road courses, but the street courses with all the concrete barriers around them are... I would love to drive them. I would give my eye teeth to get a chance to drive. In fact, at one point in time, the semi-pro series I started to talk about with the Formula Fords, we were talking about maybe we could get this semi-pro series in as one of the warm-ups for the Long Beach Grand Prix. And of course, it never happened. But it would. We knew we could give them a good show because the Formula Ford race is almost always the best race of the weekend at one of these amateur vintage races. But yeah, I would give my eye teeth to drive any of the street courses. Concrete barriers are a little bit dodgy, shall we say.
Yeah.
I heard Jimmy Bassar do a commercial one time before Indianapolis. It was they were playing sitar music, and they showed him in a lotus posture like he was meditating. And he's meditating, and he's saying, "Checkered flag good, wall bad. Checkered flag good, wall bad."
the wall would be bad.
Wall bad.
Yeah.
We had a guy in a Formula Atlantic hit the wall at Phoenix a couple of years ago and destroyed the car. And a Formula Ford race, a guy named, I'll skip the name, a doctor, a lot of doctors and lawyers in the Formula car field too.
Well, money.
Money, exactly. Yeah, one of my best buddies owns an engineering consulting firm, 45 people working for him, and has a dive boat that he goes down to Mexico in all the time, and those kinds of people. But that was the point.
Money, wall.
Oh,
the
money.
Wall.
Oh, yeah.
Wall bad.
The guy that... here's another story for you. If in a car, like a Formula car, racing with slicks on it, they hook up. And if you spin, what you do is you jam the brake on. As soon as you know you've gone, there's no way in the world, all the opposite lock in the world is going to keep it from continuing to go on around. The advice is, from all the old-timers, kick in the clutch and stand on the brakes. And he said, and the reason for that is because the physics of your trajectory, if your wheels are locked up, is easy for everybody to tell. You can see exactly where he's going to slide because he's going to continue following the course of the natural trajectory. But if you don't lock up your wheels as you're rotating, and if your wheels are freewheeling, as you rotate around, it's possible for them to take a bite and dart. And anybody that doesn't lock his wheels up will find himself doing strange things, shoot off the course. Well, there's one character spun. I was on the second lap, and they came off the north turn and onto the start-finish straightaway on the oval, and still cars packed all around him, and he overcooked it and spun, and all of a sudden darted into the barrier wall on the doing about 120 miles an hour. It was awful.
Yeah.
It was awful. The cars went everywhere. There were a couple of characters that I talked to. One of them I know very well. Was white as a ghost. He pointed to a streak on the barrier wall. He'd slid down the barrier wall on his belly pan, 2 wheels on the track and 2 wheels up in the air. And he says, "You see that black stripe right there?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "That's where I came back down." He says, "I knew I was going on my head." And he says, "And as luck would have it, I came back down. That was a stripe with a rear made on the top of the barrier wall when I came back down." But they airlifted him out on a helicopter. It took them 45 minutes to cut him out of the car. It was awful. And he's never been back. He was broken up pretty bad. He was lucky. He was lucky to have lived. When we saw it happen, I thought, "Oh, he's dead." It was awful.
Wow.
But that's it's one of the other things is race cars today are so much safer than they were back in the old days. Fuel cells make a big difference. Fire, so of course. My first race car, I wore a Dunlop suit, which was nothing more than cotton pajamas, and there was no fire protection at all, no arm restraints, shoulder harness, and a seat belt was all, and a full head. The full head coverage helmets hadn't been invented yet. It was just down across the ears, the old original bells, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, go race.
Well, get yourself some go-kart time in, and then hold up some banks.
Wow.
So when we saw you in San Diego
At Coronado.
Yes.
What a great weekend that was.
That was cool.
Very cool.
What car were you with?
I was helping my old friend Paul Wilson race his Formula 5000. It was in 1976. Actually contested the Formula 5000 series. Had wonderful provenance, that car. Overhauled from the ground up. Brand new engine and transaxle, all new suspension, and a completely overhauled main chassis. And so that's a 5-liter Chevy V8 built by a sprint car engine builder in Santa Ana named Pick. His last name is actually Pickrell, but it's Pick Engines. And that engine is, I think he puts out just under 600 horsepower out of 305 cubic inches. A monster Chevy.
Wow, that's moving.
I can't even imagine the acceleration in that car. In fact, that's got to see one of the new little video cameras, they're called.
Little GoPro?
GoPro, yeah. I wish they had GoPros when I was still driving. I would love to be able to go back and see some.
Yeah.
I got to see GoPro footage of his outing at Laguna Seca, at Sears Point recently. And the thing that crossed my mind just watching it, and of course, even on a 2-dimensional flat screen, you lose all that depth aspect of it in real situation. But even at that, the acceleration of that car is just absolutely mind-bending. And of course, the tires, that huge rear meat on it to put that kind of horsepower to the ground. But Paul does very well. He's very good. In fact, that semi-pro series I was alluding to a little while ago in the Formula Ford series, I finished second to him in my class. We had 2 classes at that time, the vintage Fords and the club Fords, 2 different age groups of Formula Fords have been around since the late 60s. I went late 60s to mid-70s is the vintage Fords, and mid-70s up to about 80 for the club Fords, and the modern Fords now are included too. That they're back when I was racing, they weren't allowed. But I finished second to Paul Wilson in the point standing, with only 2 second-place finishes and a bunch of also ran finishes, and was lucky at that. There was consistency paid. I didn't miss a single race that season, and I managed to get my name on the board for for the points race. And I took them, in addition to all the trophies I got for all of the seconds, etc., I took home a giant second place trophy for the overall championship, which is my my number one of all the trophies I've won in my life. That's my the dearest one, needless to say.
How many races are in a season?
Oh, half a dozen at least.
And those are in California?
Yeah,
Okay.
Phoenix. We're not racing at Phoenix anymore. They had a nice road course and used part of the oval and a road course there, but they've since revamped the whole thing because of NASCAR's demands, and so we're not racing at Phoenix anymore. We race at Fontana is my favorite track. It's a 3.11 mile track with I think 11 turns, and it uses about 3/4 of the oval. It's a wonderful track, and it's the garage facilities, etc. Everything is top drawer. Willow Springs is the next closest. It's 110 miles north of here, just at Rosamond, and it's the oldest track in the area. There's also Button Willow, which is about 20 miles west of Bakersfield, which is fairly flat, and I think SECA owns that. It's out in the middle of cotton wheat fields everywhere. And then there's Laguna Seca and Sears Point and Thunder Hill in Willows, California. And Thunder Hill is very far north. I've only driven it a couple of times. But Willow Springs and Fontana are two to get the lion's share of the local area driving. If you guys, you should come up to Fontana. We'll have a couple of races this year. You're definitely going to have to come out to.
Sure.
Oh, absolutely.
See that.
You'll be. It'll have a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Fontana is a wonderful place, and we always have garage space. We always rent garages, and the whole gang. It's a party. The whole weekend's a party, and the party revolves around fancy race cars. How can you beat that?
That sounds like fun.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
I don't know how you. If there's any way you can beat it, please let me know.
Looks like we're doing that because they closed the drag strip.
Sorry to hear it.
Yeah, we lost Irwindale.
So you got nothing.
There's no drag strips. There's no quarter mile
And
drag
they
strips.
used to have the fly by night on the inland side of Fontana, and I heard they closed it too.
Gone.
It's too bad.
Oh, well, until further notice.
Well, go-karts. That brings us back to go-karts.
Can't go straight. Let's go around.
Yeah, in
Road
fact,
cars.
well, people ask me, how do you get started racing? And I say that it's the first, people think the way to get started racing is go buy a car. That's exactly backwards. The first thing to do is find the tracks and the organization you want to hang with. The kind of people that you want to spend lots of weekends with, because you will get to know a bunch of people. I've got a lot of really old, good friends that I've known over the last dozen years, and we all look forward to seeing each other every time. I get emails before every race. Are you guys coming? That sort of stuff. So you pick the organization and the racetracks you want to drive, and between those two, you start hanging out, and the car will manifest itself, or the cart. Sooner or later, if you start bumping around, talking to people, and well, so-and-so over here's got an entry-level cart for sale, you might go and talk to him. That sort of thing happens. So that's the way to put it. The car is the last thing to worry about.
That's sort of like the guy at the 91 car show, the van guy was telling us, join the club first of what kind of car you want to get into.
Exactly right.
You learn the ins and outs, and what to get, what not to get, mistakes people have made.
Profit from their mistakes.
Right. And part sources and things like that, and then the car will, in this case, it was the van.
It will come together.
It will come together.
That's exactly the right good advice, because that's what clubs are really more about, is mutual self-support or mutual support than absolutely anything else. And club racing, it's the same thing. Every time anybody has any trouble at a race, missing a part, or need help with some task or something, or I don't have this, or have you got this kind of tool, everybody drops everything and rallies to your aid. It is it's just part of club racing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're seeing the same guys at every race every week.
Yeah, and it goes. What goes around comes around. The fact that you helped him last go out, guess who's going to be there, Johnny, on the spot next when the shoe is on the other foot. And lots of and before long, you start getting invitations to parties off that aren't involved in a racetrack. So-and-so's throwing a barbecue. Can you come to the South Bay this Saturday afternoon? Those sorts of things. It's a little society.
So, do you have any cars in the future that you think might be manifesting?
Well, I've got
You got that smile now.
I've got an Alpha GTV6 sitting in my garage. That's been sitting there. I bought it from Dyros in South Bay when it was a year old from Roby, the Austrian that ran the service department. He was a Ferrari specialist, very, very good old world mechanic. And he'd just gotten a new bi-turbo version of the same car. So I bought that Alpha GTV6 from him, and it was a Sunday-only car, and it's got 55,000 original miles on it. It's been sitting in the garage for a long time. It hasn't run in years and years and years for one good reason or another. But I've avoided dumping it. I've had several people try to talk me into selling it, not the least of which was my mother. But it still sits in pristine condition in terms of the body chassis unit. The engine needs work, and of course the brakes would have to be complete. Everything that's rubber and the brake lines and that sort of stuff is going to have to be replaced, and who knows what else. It's going to take several dollars to get it drivable again. But it's like for 55,000 miles on it, it's like a brand new Alfa Romeo GTV6. They only imported 1,200 of them in 1984. 1,200 is nothing. They're rare as hen's teeth, so it's one of those cars that can only go up in value, especially amongst Alfa Romeo owners. They're a real hardcore collecting clique. It's like Porsche owners. Porsche Owners Club people are very dyed-in-the-wool about their mark, and the Alfa Romeo owners are only slightly less obsessive-compulsive about it. So that's if I ever have another car project, that'll be at the top of the list. It's the only way I'll ever get back into racing again is if I find an extremely rich widow.
And you obviously didn't win the Mega Millions like the rest of us.
Darn. But if that had happened, first I would throw a big party, and you'd both be invited, and then I would start shopping for another race car. But those kind of happy thoughts aside, it's great to just be able to still go and see all my old friends and helping a couple of buddies. That Rob Hunter's Formula Atlantic and Paul Wilson's Formula 5000. He's also got an Indy car.
Wow.
An ex-Bobby Ray Hall, a 1983 March Indy car. He had two 83 Marches, one with the original Cosworth V8 in it they used on the ovals, and he modified the second one and put a all-aluminum Chevy V8 engine he used on the road courses. It drove the Long Beach Grand Prix in 83 and 84. And it's a beautiful, another restoration project from the ground up. It's for sale, by the way, if you know anybody that's into it, that wants a monster car. That car it's something.
But only after you practice on the go-karts.
Only after you practice on the go-kart. And this is a car, of course, an Indy car doesn't have an onboard starter.
What?
There is no starter motor on an Indy car. You have an off-board starter. You turn on the switches and so forth, and a man comes up behind it with a starter motor and a shaft that plugs into a spline.
Okay,
we've seen that.
Like a dragster or a funny car.
They do the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Boom. Yeah.
Same story. Everything else, I don't know of anything, like the Formula 5000 has an onboard starter. Formula 1 cars have onboard starters. And, of course, Formula Fords have ones. All of the race cars have onboard starters. It's just... and there's another thing, is keeping a starter motor on a high-compression engine isn't easy either.
Oh, yeah, that would be might be a trick to get them going.
Yeah, starter motors are one of those... They're a throwaway item, it seems like sometimes. But... it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed every second of it. I had, and my, details like I remember my very first legitimate pass. After sitting at the back of the field, making sure that you don't make any mistakes, and getting faster and faster, and finally, okay, I've proved myself that I'm not an idiot. They all understand me now. They all know me now. Now I can start dicing, and I start picking off guys off the back of the field. And one race I drove, I started dead last, because the day before I had gotten run into by another guy. This is an interesting story. I qualified 8th at Fontana, a 22-car field. I passed 2 guys in the first 2 laps. I'm running 6. I'm coming around the oval onto the back straightaway. Halfway down the back straightaway, there was a hard left followed by a hard right into the infield road course. And as I'm rolling into the first left off of the back straightaway, the guy that I'd most recently passed, he admitted himself, I just saw red and overcooked it, and he spun into me as I'm rolling into the turn. Now, I don't know anything's going on until all of a sudden his right rear wheel hits my left rear wheel, goes past my head by about 3 inches. His right rear wheel lands on my hand on my steering wheel, tore a big patch of skin off the back of my hand, and then lands on my front wheel and tears a big gouge out of a brand new slick, and he bends some of the bolts in my left rear suspension. So there I am, running, having just passed 2 guys and getting ready to pick off number 3, and all of a sudden I'm out of the race. So we've worked feverishly getting the car back together. He apologized profusely. And got the car back together, but I had to start dead last for the trophy dash on Sunday. Passing guys to the back of a field is relatively easy. And the closer you get to the middle of the field, the more difficult it becomes. And when you start getting up close to the front of the field, they get real tough. The guys that are the front markers, the first half a dozen guys, do not let you pass. If they fight for like their life depended on it. So I finished 6th in that race after starting dead last. And it was, like I said, the first half of the field was duck soup. I passed 2 or 3 guys every lap for the first several laps. But the last couple of laps, it was a real battle. It was a fun drive, to make a long story short. Passing people is always a whoop-de-doo good time.
Well, cool. Wow, it's been an hour.
How's it, Billy?
Yeah.
This quick.
Yeah,
No quitting.
It sure does. We'll have to have you back again, and we can do a part 2.
It would be my extreme pleasure, gentlemen.
Awesome. So, until next time, my name is William.
And this is Davis.
And Jon Bryant.
All right.
No, I did you.
Yeah, don't skip on the primer.
But there'll be